check to see if it's working. It's giving me all these weird notifications. I'm gonna direct proxy it down, and I don't know. You know, I do say at least this is why I stick with them. They definitely do some updates and try to fix their system some or whatever. What? All right, I might have to try one more time. Oh no, hold on. It say we live. Okay, good. I might have to try one more time. No, we not. We're gonna check Facebooks and we're gonna move on with our lives. Soul money, perfect. I'm gonna direct proxy down. Oh, Streamlabs is Streamlabbing, so I appreciate that. It kept saying something about my sound wasn't connected, or you know, generally when I try it, I got to make sure it actually is multi-streaming, which is a hassle. And then it was saying my sound wasn't connected, which is a hassle. But yeah, I guess we should be happy because now we can stream the TikTok. And no, we not. We gonna check Facebooks. Okay, what the hell is going on? All right, let me get our life together. I was trying to get me some water, but I got stuck on that. Trying to get started. So, water for the champion. How was your day today? I hope everyone was having a good day. Mine turned out a little better than expected because I didn't have to do as much work as I thought I was going to have to do. And I was able to spend a little time on my hammock. I got this vision turning in my outdoor space into a movie theater. So, I got hella glasses, and this is wild because I still got these ones on because I had some shoes that actually match the earpiece. And I got a gray polo with that color horse. And then I got some New Balances with this color on it too. Don't let me get you started. But I've been taking your advice. I started trying to post those getting ready with me. So I got another one. And I got one from Thanksgiving I never posted, which is wild. Wild concept. So I don't even know if I want to post that now because just don't play any B movies. Okay, so I gotta log back into Twitch, so my Twitch connection has expired. What I'm the king of B movies. It's gonna be to be capital out there, you heard? To be topped all the way down. So these lights, boom, boom, boom. That's why you say it, because that's probably gonna be the first movie. I was messing around talking about Walk Hard today too. I was like mess around and watch Walk Hard. That's why I'd like to try some cocaine. That movie's crazy. We just tell me you've seen it. Man, I ain't trying to turn on the disco light. This the wild thing. I got this remote. And that's supposed to be for I thought about it, but I got another time to be able. I really ain't do anything with this outfit today, so I was like, I'll wait till I'm actually going out to do something. I just went. I had a taste for some chili today, so I made some chili and some cornbread. But hey, I posted one today. I got two up there, so you know what I mean. I'm living the glamorous life. That's pretty good. You know, we gotta celebrate our small victories when we can. Do do do. And like, right. It's funny. I'm letting y'all see me set up. I'm supposed to have all this together before you come on, but you know, lo siento. Life doesn't always move the way we like it. I'm doing some other stuff today. Well, I ain't lying. That was in slow motion. Give me a nap. Ooh! Right, don't laugh at me now. I almost broke my neck. And I stay by myself. I'd have been one of them people who've been stuck in here for days before somebody found me. I don't got no cat. And I say that specifically because I was watching this show with EMTs or somebody, and they were talking about how the difference between, oh, I know you crying about that. Jesus Christ, I do not want to hear you crying about my damn chains. But they were talking about the difference between cat owners and dog owners. And it was like if you die and you got a dog, whenever they go in there to do those safety checks, the dog being there starving. You know what I mean? So they be struggling to survive without their owners. But then he said cats, they eat their owners' bodies. And he said the funny thing about it is they always start with the nose. So they always eat the nose first. So depending on how long you've been down there, you got a cat gonna eat your nose, which is terrible. All right, we close to almost done with this book. You know what I just realized too? Yo, she done got so far away from the sentence, I forgot that the book is actually about a sentence that she read. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yo, we done got so far from that sentence. So now I see. I mean, it's a good book, but yeah, Lo Siento. Give me a little agua. What'd you say? I need a what? A life alert. Oh no, child. Let me tell you something. If my big ass fall in here, somebody up under me better. Well, I ain't that big, but 191 pounds hit the ground. That definitely is gonna make some noise if you live up under. And I still very much remember I live in a somewhat affluent area. So they definitely will call the police on me. So it'll work. All right, so let's get this party started. Excuse me. We are on. All right. Here we go. Oh, shoot. Before I break something. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Let's all do the yeah. All right, so now I'm gonna be still, so you ain't gotta complain about my microphone. So thank you for your patience. Yeah, that I'm gonna do better. So with posting, get ready with me. So because I might be one of them, what they call them, silver foxes that they be looking for real. and not the ones that be in their inbox, because I don't inbox nobody. Nope. All right, so we on The Professor. It was the golden hour on the day of the reprieve from the crushing heat. A cool breeze thumped down tiny green apples from time to time. The National Guard was gone, and people displaced during COVID and the uprising were camped out or looking for shelter. On the way here, we passed dozens of tent clusters. Still, the city was deep and green. Now we sat on opposite sides of the Seaman's tiny backyard. Pollux and I had old blue metal chairs. Asima sat in a tippy aluminum lawn chair with red plastic webbing. When the sun slanted in from the west, the spindle leaves of a locust tree danced and glowed. In a ragged garden, yellow squash blossoms blazed under spotted leaf umbrellas. Heavy-bottomed bumblebees and arrowing dragonflies lifted in and out of the deep scarlet flowers of Monarda. A curious baby A curious baby hummingbird paused in midair before my face. I held my breath. I was being given valediction. The hummingbird vanished, and I closed my eyes to trap in my mind the iridescence. Goodbye, little God. Asima poured us glasses of cold water flavored with mint stalks and sliced lemon. She was being careful, using a piece of paper towel to grasp the handle of the jug. She reassured us that the glasses on the tray were just washed in hot water. We reached forward and grasped the bottom of the glasses and tipped them towards our mouth. A hummingbird remembers every flower it ever sipped from, said Asima. I remember every beer I've ever drunk with you, Pollock said to me. I did not respond. We were trying to get back to the easy, transparent love, but every time I got close, I stirred up the mud. I was tired of making things worse. This goes down good, said Pollux. He bent his leg and rested his ankle on his knee. This meant he was self-conscious, but our bookstore historian had asked us over for a reason. She was trying to get back to the regular business of life and work on her dissertation. Seema wanted to talk to me about a book the one I'd buried. The book I told her had killed Flora and nearly killed me. I hadn't wanted to come over. The heat had lifted and the day was so blessed, so beautiful. I didn't want to touch even one syllable of that book, but she had bribed us with a kettle of early sweet corn. So, she said after our paper plates were set aside, heaped with gnawed cobs, about the book. Oh, please, I said. The Book of Doom, let us just forget about it. Why go back there? Because I think I may have some answers for you. Asima Migo Mano, for God's sakes, just let it go. Tuki, it's just a book. It killed Flora and nearly disintegrated me. I could feel Pollux fidgeting, rolling his eyes. I could feel him frowning in the distance. I mean, Flora Iban, I said. Nah, I just remember because he told you you're not supposed to say their name. Ah, thank you. What's up with you on Twitch, brother? Tonight we doing Thursday nights is book club. Tuesday nights we do live readings or just talk, whatever. So check us out if you can. Um, yeah, because he told her you ain't supposed to just say the dead's name, and she said her name. Where's the book now? I'll read it and see if I die, said Asima. I don't have that damn book. I buried it. Oh yeah? Buried it? Asima stretched her hands out and leaned forward in her precarious chair. You told me you had buried a dog. I knew you hadn't. You don't even like dogs enough to dig a hole. I do like dogs. Maybe not enough to dig a hole, but enough to... I tolerate dogs, even though they hate me. And I burnt the book. Beneath the flickering leaves, her face became intent, and composed. Uh-oh, the day was ruined. Asima assumed an air of false authority, steepled her fingers beneath her jaw, and smiled. You didn't burn it, she said. That's a lie. Half a lie, I said. Asima ignored me. Furthermore, I have a confession to make. Pollux glanced at me. Absolved, I said. Let's move on. I kept thinking about that day we sat on your down tree. What you said. I went to your house when you were gone, said Asima. I went to the place you told me you had buried the dog. I pried up the sod, then the dirt. It took me a while, but I got the book out. I choked on my rage, but I didn't do more than kick the leg of an old table. God damn, you went behind my back? I know, and I'm sorry, said Asima. I couldn't leave it alone, but I did find something. I don't forgive you, or I do forgive you, but I'm still pissed. Okay, I'm sorry. I was afraid of that, but not afraid enough to respect my decision to get rid of the book. I'm worried about you, Tookie. I was now too upset to speak, so I rattled on anyway about how Kateri had passed the book to me alone, and how I was the only one with the authority to destroy it. I told Asima about how the book had nearly killed me after it had killed Flora. At last, Asima say, I do respect your decision, but you weren't getting rid of the book. You were only burying it. And also, most important, it was my book. Yours, it was mine, Tookie. That book belonged to me first. Flora stole it from me. More important, it belongs to history. I said this in a pious voice, irritating me. I'm all ears, Professor Asima. Just listen, Tookie. I'll go looking for primary sources, said Asima. Driving down from Winnipeg, I saw a sign for a farm auction and stopped. There was a box of old ledgers. I was the only one who bid on it. When I got home, I just started looking through the bound ledgers and journals. Usually there are entries, accounts, notes, and on merchandise or debts, but the writing hardly ever takes up a whole notebook. One of the journals looked empty at first, but about a quarter of the way in, some writing began. As I read the journal, I realized it to have some, had to have been written right after what is called the Rail Rebellion. You know, the early war for the indigenous land rights in Canada. Asima was really going to make an excellent professor, I thought, and she settled back in a resentful huff. She was just getting wound up. She began to pace on cracked cement and beaten grass. All she needed was a pipe and elbow patches on a tweed jacket. That's messed up too. I remember somebody got me a Christmas gift with them elbow patches, and I wear it because they got it. My aunt got it for me, but nah. But I did see this dude at work with his tweed jacket with the elbow patches was clean, so don't be surprised. I'm thinking old school. The policing of indigenous people by white people on this continent goes back to the creation of occupying military forces bent on war of extermination in both the U.S. and Canada. She narrowed her eyes. It was the Bluecoats, the cavalry, the RCMP, then Indian agents or the military chose tribal members to police their community. Once the Bureau of Indigenous Affairs was formed, it was Bia cops. Next to me, Pollux leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. I could feel him turning on, but Asima powered on. Now, with jurisdictional issues on the reservation, it's a mixture of federal, tribal, local, and state police. Or here in Minneapolis, it's the MPD and a history of legacy attitudes stemming from the Dakota War. Way to go, Asima. I got up to take my leave, giving slow, ironic claps. Asima made an earnest hushing motion, and spoke over me. After the defeat of the Batre, the Cree, Ojibwe, and the Mischief people scattered, and lots of people crossed the medicine line to live around the sweetgrass hills of Montana. Montana is a beautiful place. I lived there for a couple of years as a kid, and It actually made one of my loves for winter. Because all the winter activities you see in books, you get to do in Montana, and some you never knew existed. Or the Turtle Mountains, or around Pembina, near the Red River. The manuscript was written by a young woman, probably O.G. Creed and French, who fell ill, was rescued by a white farm family, but then kept as sort of a servant. As I read on, I realized that she was held against her will, basically enslaved. Asima picked up a wooden spoon and began to slap her hand with it as she walked back and forth. Oh my God. Do I get credits for listening to this? I groaned and glanced at Pollux, but now he was listening. There were accounts of brutal treatments our young women suffered when she tried to run away. This was difficult to read, filled with details of what was done to this woman. Some of it was so harrowing that I could only take in a few lines at a time before putting down the book. She stopped talking, put one hand over her eyes in a childish gesture I'd never seen her use. She appeared to be struggling. She threw down the spoon. What did you do? Asked Pollock, softening towards his daughter's friend. After about a reading, I would stare for hours at nothing, unable to lift my hands or move, unable to feel agency, unable to decide whether to stand up and make myself a cup of tea or wander outside or maybe to the refrigerator and make a sandwich. I was aware that I had these choices, and that also confused me. It helped me to remember that I should burn sage and make an offering each time I picked up the book. A semen gathered itself, patted her chest as if to restart her heart, and went on talking. This woman was named My Name, which is a clan name referring to a creature of which is a clan name referring to a creature, half woman, half fish, a character in our teachings. Her Zaganash name was Genevieve Molin. Eventually, My Name freed herself and went to live in a small settlement along the Red River. Last time I was there, Pembina was composed of few houses, big green trees, and a bar full of suspicious citizens, a struggling hotel, and a historical society with a soaring tower that contained all sorts of wonderful memorabilia of those times. I stopped there the same day I bought the old journals. But when My Name lived here almost a century and a half ago, it was a rowdy place and she was young. A woman who seemed kindly took her in, fed her, then drugged her and forced her into prostitution. This woman who ran the brothel became My Name's nemesis. She was a true sadist. She broke the girl's bones, carved a sign into her breast, burned the soles of her feet so she couldn't run away, and so terrorized her that ultimately a climate of the place took pity on her. And third time she was abducted by, but this time by a man with a redeeming characteristic or two. He married her to his son and moved them to Rolette, North Dakota, where they worked the father's land for 20 years, at which time they inherited it. My name, now known as Genevieve, had learned to read and write during her captivity, and this was the account she left. And now, listen, if what you say is right, and something in the book killed Flora, I know what it was. It was on her last page. Flora laid her eyes on the one that was bookmarked. You read the page? What did it do to you? Nothing. Flora stole this manuscript, a woman's testimony, because she hoped it would validate her assumed identity. I can't forgive her for that. She essentially removed a vital piece of history, but as if to punish her, the book killed her. What words? What sentence? Asked Paulus. A sentence that contained a name. A name can be very powerful, Pollock spoke slowly. Maybe he felt about names the way I felt about ghosts. And he does. He's serious about that name. I think, as you will see, that what caused Flora's death was Flora's name, Asima said. I think it shattered her to learn where her name originated from and with whom. Flora's name? I whispered. Yellow spots formed before my eyes. My brain went blank. Then I stood up and wandered into a room in my head I'd seen before. Everything in the room repelled me with an unyielding force that grew stronger and stronger until I was catapulted into my body from which there was no escape. I slumped, I slumped over and fainted. As a stage escape, it was perfect, except that I was actually unconscious. Moments later, I opened my eyes. Asima was trying to pour water between my lips, and Pollux was fanning me with his shirt. The meeting. This was a ragged time. Brutally hot, crime-prone, lush. A comet passed over us. The buildup of boxes and books on the floor increased. The sail, the sailboat table was taken over with curbside bag pickups. We were selling many copies of very few titles. Only Penstemon made it her business to witness the passing of the comet, which would not return for another 6,800 years. Now our staff was sitting in lawn chairs on a plot of grass, shielded from the sidewalk by a wall. We popped open cans of flavored seltzer water. What I hate is when people talk about the vaccine, they say the cavalry's coming, said Asima. Don't they get there talking about genocide? Because that's what the cavalry did, genocide. Everybody here will agree with you 100%, said Groom. Let's circle the wagon, said Jackie. As we distance our lawn chairs, let's circle the wagons and have a powwow, I said. We're filling school orders from all over the country. We try our best to vet our books and decide which native books were good to carry, and we talk to teachers and librarians through the process. Do we have enough money to warehouse those most popular titles? Asked Penstemon. Wait, first, can we raise a can of cold fizzy water to our customers? Asima grabbed a new can from the cooler on the grass, popped it, and everyone toasted a number of curbside and online orders we were still receiving. Everyone was strung out. Although people couldn't browse and discover surprises, we were still selling books and had decided to hire. Our volume had perhaps canceled out the extra costs in work hours and materials, but we were still paying storefront rent. We weren't sure we'd survive as a mail order bookstore. School sales had come to our rescue, but would they carry us through? Still, it's so nice to have people care about us, Jackie marveled. It's a miracle, said Gruen. Our space, it rocks with friendship. Asima and Pentamon air hugged him from across the circle. At the time, Gruen's country had contained the virus. Our country had fanned its spread, and Americans were now banned from crossing borders around the world. Now Gruen was trapped in the United States with a bunch of pariahs, in a city slashed with fire and ash, in a country led by a filthy old con artist. He had been kettled and arrested on the Minneapolis bridge. He was cheerful even in his faltering republic. I didn't feel like I wanted to talk about the crossroads. I was already overloaded. I got up and pretended to need something from the store. But when I reached the store, I saw Roland's dog, Gary, sitting on the steps. She grinned at me. I stopped, looked at Gary, expecting that Roland had brought his dog to pick up books, but Gary seemed to be alone on the street. She was alert and calm, sitting there as if she was waiting to see me. Hello, Gary, I said. Where's Roland? With what recognition it seemed, Gary had enough. She got up and began to trot away. I followed her as she sped up and turned a corner. When I rounded the corner a few seconds, she had disappeared. This bothered me for the rest of the day. A conviction lodged itself. Gary had come to deliver a message. Eventually, I dialed Roland's number, but he didn't answer. I immediately pictured Roland collapsing in the house, helpless, and decided to drive over to make sure he was all right. The city was hot and sticky, the air soupy. Another police shooting of a black man in Kenosha had brought people out in the streets. The catalyst this time was a birthday party. On the way to Roland's, I saw very few people. It was as though the part of the city I drove through was under some sort of spell. Maybe the spell was air conditioning. However, the dense, humid calm made me uneasy. It felt like exploding with anxiety myself. I felt like exploding with anxiety myself as I drove along in empty silence. I reached Roland Street and pulled up in front of his house. Well, I thought, it's still there, and it looks tranquil. I stepped out into the hot, wet blanket of air and walked up the steps. Before I reached the stop steps, a woman opened the door and greeted me with a surprised look. I'm Tookie from the bookstore. Is Mr. Waring home? The woman clutched her brows. Blouse, I'm his daughter, she said. I just got back from the hospital. Roland's there. It's not COVID, she said when she saw my face. It's heart incident. Is he going to be all right? He's got a stent. The doctor are keeping him now for observation. He's okay? The energy drained out of me as I lowered myself to the steps. She came down and sat with me. From the corner of my eye, I could see her wipe her face, but she was silent. At last, I told her I had driven over because Roland's dog had come to the bookstore. Maybe you're looking for Gary, I said. There was an odd silence. No, she answered after a bit. A few hours after we took Dad to the hospital, Gary died right there. That was a couple of days ago. She's buried in the backyard. You must have seen a different dog. It was Gary. I saw the nick on her ear. There was an odd silence. Then we lifted our burdensome, sweaty bodies off the steps, said goodbye, and parted ways. Halfway home, I pulled over. Polly's grandma had once told him dogs are so close with people that sometimes when death shows up, the dog will step in and take the hit, meaning the dog will go off with death, taking their person's place. I was pretty sure that Gary had done this for Roland and then visited the bookstore to let me know. In the rest of the world, things did not calm down. Things continued to falter. By sheer repetition, our highest elected official was wearing false grooves into people's brains that they interpreted as truth. Portland's protesters were grabbed off the street by anonymous officers thrown in vans for questioning. It was learned that cats live in a state of chronic schizophrenia. What? There was this sense. They say cats live in a state of chronic schizophrenia. I had to look that up because this might just be crazy book talk. Oh God. There was this sense as we approached fall and the election that we were traveling down a steep slope towards an unknown fate. Maybe there would be relief, or maybe things would get worse. The number of deaths that ticked over and continued to grow. Our country crept along beneath a pall of sorrow. There was a continual hum of panic. Everything felt synthetic. Everything was constantly rearranging. Here, some of the city parks were homeless encampments. Some were lawless, run by sex traffickers. Other camps were valiant and heartbreaking attempts at self-police utopias. Pollux made his special potato salad with bacon and hot pickles. I noticed that my hair was growing thin on one side of my head. Pollux blamed my heated right brain. Had decided yet again to stay and live with us out of an abundance of caution. We kept using that phrase ironically because people in the government kept using it to cover up their fear or incompetence. Jarvis started to gnaw on a teething ring. Hedda allowed Lauren to visit. They were sitting around in the yard when a strip of grass under the kitchen window on a strip of grass under the kitchen window, which was open. I heard them talking and tiptoed to the window to eavesdrop. Is he really mine? Laurent asked. Are you serious? What's your grandpa's name? Oh, would I name a baby Jarvis for any other reason? Plus, look at his hair. Laurent began to apologize in every way possible. I've never heard a man apologize so fervently. This went on, so I could only assume that Hedda was eating it up, or at least accepting what he said. Laurent also professed his love for Hedda and handed over what he said was a stack of love letters. Apparently, they were written in the language he discovered. There was a sound of ruffling paper. How am I supposed to read these? Just glance at the letters and cross your eyes. The meaning hovers. Take them back. I'm just kidding. If you want, I'll translate them. By the way, I deleted your part in Midnight Cowgirl entirely. It's gone. I went through every file, got rid of every scene you were in. I mean, for sure by now they found out. But they don't know where you went, and I've hidden my tracks. There was only a sly pause. I'm good at that. I couldn't tell how Hedda reacted, but after a while, there were snuffling sounds, low cries, a soothing murmur from Laurent that changed to a lower register. Listening in on Hedda weeping and the two making up made me, even me, ashamed to listen. So I sneaked away. My heart, my tree. Flora laid low. Faked me out. I went back to work one morning. I wasn't surprised to be alone, but Jackie had decided to work from home. So she texted me on the way to the store, and I debated whether to work without her. We were too far behind, and I would flounder if I bowed out. So I persuaded myself it would be fine. Besides, the store was cool, and the street was already an inferno. If only I had used an abundance of caution. I had a moment of discomfort as I entered the store, but there hadn't been a whisper or a hiss out of Flora for at least a month. Nor had she hidden books from me, although she still occasionally knocked a couple of books off the shelves. Earlier, I had become accustomed to her shuffling and sliding. I had decided to accept her comings and goings as background noise. The store's activity had seemed to pacify or neutralize Flora's resentment. I played ever stronger, ghost repelling music. I wasn't feeling the pall of her regard. I wasn't worried. Had no hint, no imitation. When a large delivery arrived, I worked calmly, entering books into the system and setting them in piles. The task required deep level concentration, but the music kept me going. I lost track of Flora until I walked across the floor to shelve the books I'd entered. About halfway across the store, right next to the sailboat table, she pushed me over. The books falling from my arm cushioned me. I caught myself before my face hit the floor and slowly tried to rise. But then, but then, something lowered onto my back, pressing me down. I gave in to the sensation without a struggle. It wasn't terrible. Warmth bloomed under the steady pressure, and my heart slowed. I was a bird in a blanket, a swaddled baby. When I pushed up against the heavy substance, it gave way, and I knelt on the floor. Once the pressure was gone, it felt like nothing had happened. I lay back down on my stomach and stretched out, numb and forgetful, unperturbed. Later for perturbance, I thought. Then she tried to enter me. I felt the shark fin edge of her hand sink into my back. The shock of it didn't register as pain until the fingers flexed beneath my shoulder blades and gripped me from the inside. Then, oh God, she was prying at my body. She was pulling my shoulders apart. She tried to press aside my spine. I fought against her hand like a fish on a hook. We struggled and I lost. She was sitting on me and she had weight, force. She used one hand as a wedge, snaking the other hand alongside it. She enlarged the opening in my back, pressing, twisting, turning, tearing me open and going deeper until both hands found my heart and tried to wring it like a rag. My heart, my beautiful fire, my heart, my tree. I closed my eyes. In the blackness, my tree crashed down, flailing forward. My branches caught and lowered me until I was floating just over the floor. There, as if I were on a table before her, Flora opened the rest of my body carefully, unzipping me like a wetsuit. She flopped me to the ground and tried to shove her feet down to the bottom of my feet and her arms to my fingertips. She tried to rear up the side of my torso and pushed her head through my neck so that she'd be able to see through my eyes. But I didn't go limp like a body rag. I wasn't an empty wetsuit. I'm quite solid. There just wasn't any room, no matter how she squeezed and jostled. There was just too much of me, the way there was always has been. I am and always will be too much Tukey. When I didn't come home or answer the phone, Pollux used my extra key and found me on the floor. I was snoring, so he knew right away I wasn't dead. Maybe drunk, maybe the pandemic stress and all else was happening had snapped my resolve. What resolve? I asked later as we walked home. Nobody was out. It was a stifling evening. The leaves hung sullen in the lifeless air. Your resolve to, well, not a resolution, just a convention where you don't drink on the job. I never did drink on the job, my love. Of course. Don't know why I even said that. Pollock stopped mumbling and fetched a sigh. I knew he kind of hung on to the fact I'd called my love. Actually, I meant it ironically, but the words had come out snarky and true. Excuse me, but the words had come out shaky and true. He threw his head back, sweat dripped from his brow, and our fingers were sloppily jointed. It was like holding hands underwater. I could feel my sweat trickling down my back, streaming down my neck, running down my legs. I could not control it. I never sweat that way before, and I was embarrassed. I'm dripping. It's awful. It's me, said Pollux. I'm sweating worse. My hair is soggy. My face is covered in beads of water. Water rolled off my brow, and the salt stung my eyes. Look at my back, I said, turning away from him, tapping my shoulders. See if there's any blood. Pull my shirt up. Out here in the open? I don't care who sees. I knew I'd been ripped apart and blood should have been pouring out of me, but I could only feel drips. Pollux lifted my shirt. You're sweaty, he said, and you got these weird marks, creases, and dents. Were you sleeping on a coil of rope? I was on my stomach, I said in a croaking voice. Pollux, I used Iban. I put tobacco out. I did everything you told me. I fought Flora, blessed her, played music. But this afternoon, she tried something else. Pollux was silent as we hotly sloshed along. He was waiting for me to go on, but I was afraid that I sounded even crazier than I sounded before. I was afraid that this would be the tipping point and Pollux would have me committed. Or just as awful, he might just stop believing in me. You wouldn't commit me, would you? I asked. It depends, he said, trying to whine a joke. I'm serious. No, never. I don't know. She better ask that again because he's the same one that got her arrested and put her in jail. Pollux, Pollux eagerly professed this and tried to sling his wet arm around my wet shoulders. His arm slipped off. What happened? Come on, you can tell old Pollux. Good old Pollux, I said. My voice was either sad or weakly sarcastic or both. We stopped on the sidewalk in the middle of the bridge where I'd usually pick up a slight breeze. The trees blew us, had been scraped off the earth. Excuse me. I stood before him and tried to find words, tried to make sounds come out my mouth, tried to tell him, but a tangle of thorns filled my lungs. I couldn't take a deep breath. I wheezed and he put his arms around me. Tookie? I tried. I held my breath, beat my hands against my head, growled, laughed, but it was useless. I was just as alarmed as Pollux when it began. His arms tightened as the first sob burst out of me. Another. Tears splattered my hand. I could feel my nose swelling, eyes slinking. My skin went fever hot. Pollux held on to me. At least he knew exactly what to do. Nothing. I grew younger and younger until I was a giant, leaking child who sagged in his mom's arm, then socked him hard. He didn't fight me. He did not throw me over the bridge. I thought someone would pass and see us struggling, but the superheated road was still. Pollux drew my head to his heart and soothed my head. Tuki. He kept repeating my name like a mantra and let me convulse until the madness passed out of me and I was simple again. He took a bandana out of his pocket and I put it to my face. The cloth was already damp. I took his hand like the docile creature I am and I let him lead me home. Hold on, what's that? Okay, the believing in me was a real statement. That was tough. Where we at? I was a giant. Okay, here we go. Tuki, oh Tuki, thought Pollux, my magic menace. Tuki had been doing so well. Pollux had been hoping she wouldn't foam up, boil over, start tossing molten lava in the dark. He never knew exactly what he'd done besides the obvious, but so much was his fault. Tuki had been relatively calm for a long time. He begun to feel the tension, the elviness, the shakery, the clenching, the unclenching of her fist, even though she held it together. This was the difficulty of living with Tuki. It was easier to live with her after she fell apart than to dread when it was going to happen. The first time she cracked, so long ago, Pollux had failed her. Through the years she'd been in prison, he'd been afraid to get in touch with her. He'd been so ashamed of himself. The fateful day and life of surprising love. Most of the time, the last time Tookie had cracked, Hedda wouldn't speak for her for a year. But maybe Tookie had done some inner work she never talked about. Maybe Pollock's prayers had grown stronger because this was the longest either one of them could remember her holding it together. Furthermore, instead of falling into a frenzy of anger she had, for the first time ever, at least that Pollux could remember, cried on his shoulder. Yeah, she finally trying to let some of them tears out. So we on something called Ruggaroo. And I'll read a couple more pages. Then we get this. Oh shoot! Don't play with me. The story of Ruggaroo. What? What did I read? Okay, yeah, Ruggaroo. Pillows and sheets. Yeah. I couldn't get back on the bus and travel around the city tasting soup during pandemic times. I also couldn't go back to work. Not at all. Pinstamon had told Jackie that she heard Flora too. So when I told Jackie what happened, she hired a college student taking classes from home and divided my hours amongst the rest of the staff without comment. She was a compassionate juggler, so I was on leave. There were two ways to handle my nerves: stay in bed forever or not. My What? My body loves inertia. My brain loves oblivion. So there was this really, so there was really no choice. I did have a scolding inner voice that tried to tell me that after I'd been locked up and isolated in my life, it was extremely wrong to voluntarily confine myself with a bunch of sheets and pillows. But it was a safe nest of tangled hugs. I wrapped and unwrapped, plumped and squashed, then collapsed. Even Paulus gave me space after I told him that I needed to wrestle with my demon. What man in his right mind is going to come between a woman and her demon? Or maybe he wasn't a demon. Maybe he was just someone who taught me who I am. Buddy's real name was Benedict Godfrey. He was an elegant name suited to a British aristocrat, a name that deserved a Sir or Lord before it. He went by his initials, BG, and eventually BG became Budgie. Even if he had dressed in coat and tail instead of his usual black baggy metal band t-shirts, BG would still have been a colorless person. Measly, as I've said, with pitted skin and lipless sneer. He was scarred from getting regularly beaten up and had rotten disposition. The only positive thing I've ever heard him say, somewhere from the depths of satisfaction in his nowhereness, was a drawn out, yeah. Budgie wore long sleeve shirts beneath his t-shirts, either because tracks and bruises or because he was always cold. His ass was so skinny and hips so rickety that his jeans puckered inward in all the wrong places. One summer, a few of us went out camping by the lake. What? Went camping by the lake, poisoned by some green brain eating algae. That crazy. Why you gonna go camping by a lake with some brain eating algae? How you doing, Michelle? Glad to have you here. Stopping in. We're about to wrap it up a little bit. So, but thanks for stopping through. Oh, where we at? Yeah, but who's gonna go swimming in a lake that's poisoned by brain eating algae? And let me tell you something. It'd be obvious too, because when them lakes start, it stinks. It stinks terrible. Um, dude. We built a fire to get high around, and I commenced staring at the heavens from my camping chair. Then it happened. A poignant plucking ornament, a song of outraged tenderness. No words, because to use words would take away the meaning. It was the sound of the stars. Only wolves are supposed to hear the stars. By then, I didn't know if I'd become a wolf or was violating some sacred rule. I began to shiver apart into molecules of dark air, but I was not afraid. I was riding spider webs and moonbeams. I was infinitely soothed and swirled a million miles up and a million miles back, and then music stopped and can rattled, and I heard the guitar player. Yeah. I hated Benedict Godfrey for messing with my vibe, but it was for love that I threw him in the cold trunk and was thus betrayed. Now I saw both of us had been betrayed, for Danae and Mara had treated his body like a shipping box. I guess the question is, how much do we owe the dead? I suppose that question was my devil. But I'd lied about what I was doing. I couldn't fight. I'd lost my will to struggle. I had decided to become a slug. No thinking, no extraneous motions, no talking at all. I made an epic trip to the kitchen twice a day, brought back a tray of whatever. Didn't didn't even, couldn't even hold Jarvis. That's how bad it was. Until one day had a barged in. Get up, she said. I know what happened. Dad told me. Do you think you're the only one dealing with ghosts and shit? No, I mumbled from my nest. Everybody's got a ghost they want to tell me about, but mine tried to get inside me. Me. It's always, it's fucking always fucking you. I wasn't even going to dignify that. I turned over, made a cozy lump of myself, shut my eyes, had a charge around the bed, and shook my shoulder. I pushed her away. I did it gently, but I made sure she knew I wasn't going to move. Then she did something underhanded, something devious, something she knew I couldn't bear. She knelt beside the bed and began to weep. Having been overtaken by tears on that bridge, I was vulnerable. I felt the pressure rise in me like steam. After a good long while in which she didn't let up and I understood she wasn't faking, I turned to her and patted her shoulder. I asked what was wrong. The sobs were belting out weakened. She gulped, snorted, gave a despairing honk, and started crying again. I kept patting her shoulder. Finally, she said to me in a wee little thready voice, Tuki, I don't know what's real anymore. Okay. I began, then stopped myself. I tried again, explained. Laurent was here. He started giving me this, I don't know, this mad crazy garbage. What about some heritable illness, something that gets passed on in his family, something he says I should know about? I sat up like I've been socked away, shocked by a live wire. Something that would affect Jarvis? Yes, she started crying again. I begged her to try to calm down so I could figure out what was going on. I reared up out of covers and my dizziness saw sparks of light, for I was used to being horizontal. I tried again to manage to crawl over and sit beside her in my bed lump hair and my baggy ripped cheap Target trauma pants. I was reporting for duty. All right, slow down. Let's go back over this using more words. Whew, breathe. Slow, okay? He said that he's a ruggaroo. What? He said that it runs in his family. That is even what the book he gave you is about. His memoir or whatever. The one that's written in dead language, his ancestors' language. He dreamed in this language all his life. Then for about a year, every so often, when he woke up from those dreams, he wrote down a few sentences in the language, this script. He said this book gave, he said, okay, shoot, excuse me. He said this book he gave you was dictated to him by a part of himself that channeled his family history. I picked up at his hand and held it. Don't worry. I'm pretty sure Lawrence deluded. Although, what? I had just remembered how his face shifted slightly the last time I really talked to him. Then at Lyle's, how he tried to push Empire of the Wild like it was the Holy Bible. That book included a lonesomely attractive ruggaroo. Was there something to this? Let's get him to come over and read the book to us. We'll find out what he's talking about. Jarvis piped up from the below, a thin wail. Hedda ran downstairs. I kept sitting on one side of the bed. Suddenly, without thinking it through, I was on my feet, striding over to my dresser, pulling out my favorite black jeans. The next thing I knew, they were on me, and a black long sleeve t-shirt too. I was walking down the stairs, abandoning my oblivion, back in whatever game the world was playing with me and with us. All right, so hey, I appreciate you. This is about to end though, because you know I normally wrap up about 8 o'clock. So I appreciate you joining. Try to join next week if you got some time. I know it, you know, or for the show, or you know, we do Tuesdays too. Maybe you need to come on and update us on your life right now. You know we love that. But as always, I appreciate your family. I appreciate your views. I appreciate you showing up. And I'll see you next Tuesday for live readings, well, live energy readings and more. Or next Thursday for continuation of book club. So don't be laughing, girl. All right. I'll talk with y'all. Peace. So don't be laughing, girl. All right. I'll talk with y'all. Peace.